Charlie Parsons for Boxing Social in association with William Hill and Empire Fight Store. Delighted to be joined here in Guadalajara with Mr. Tony Sims. A bit different this from Brentwood, Essex.
Yeah, and the hotel's lovely, Parsons. It's a really nice place here.
I will just firstly say thank you to you and the team for the way that you've taken me in this week. I almost feel like I'm living a boxing fan's dream anyway in this job, but the access that I've had with you guys has been nothing short of sensational. So Tony, thank you very much for that.
That's right, Parsons. You're becoming a little favourite of ours, aren't you, mate?
First things first, just seen Conor do some rounds. Happy with how he's looking, and obviously seems mentally in much better place than a couple of months ago. I know it must still be difficult, but getting back into the swing of things.
Yeah, just the main thing is that he's kept training and just keeping himself in shape. Obviously, as we all know, his lawyers are speaking to UCAD now, so we're hoping to get this sorted fairly soon. So as soon as we do, he'll be ready to go.
I spoke to him and he said the one thing that he's sort of struggling with at the minute is the demotivation, having nothing to fight for with uncertainty. What do you have to do? Every time I've seen him, he I was just saying yesterday, the way he was listening to you on the pads, etc., seems like it's there. But at the same time, when you haven't got anything to train for and you haven't got anything to fight for, what does push you through it and doing stuff like that?
Yeah, no, you're right, Parsons, and it's a little bit like if you have to go around the country interviewing and not getting paid for it, you probably get demotivated and think, I can't be bothered to do this because I'm not getting paid for it. So why would I travel all over the place? So that's the same sort of thing that he's going through. But sometimes you just got to be professional and get the job done. And he's been training all the while. And as I say, we're hoping to get this across the line fairly soon, and then he can look forward to getting a date under his belt and then fighting again.
How mentally tough has it been for yourself? You're a man who's been involved in boxing training all your life. You live and breathe the sport. I know after Joe Cordina's win, Eddie spoke to me and he said, if anything, I'm most happy for Tony because he's been through hell and back with this. Your life isn't a lie. You go to the gym and then you'll go home and, it's family for you. Do you know what I mean? How have you dealt with this period?
Yeah, like you say, it hasn't been easy, and because I've dedicated my life to the sport, 25 years coaching fighters, and obviously this is like the first time this has ever happened in my gym, so it's been a really difficult time. And but like anything, time goes by and you keep carrying on doing your job as best as you can, and other things take over your life.
We're here for the Gorilla John Ryder. He takes on, and it is the Lion's Den, Canelo Saul Alvarez here in Guadalajara, the Azteca Stadium. Just firstly, how excited are you?
Yeah, I mean, it don't come any bigger than this, especially fighting Canelo in his hometown. You can just feel the anticipation at the press conference today and see the amount of press that was there. And this is a massive stage, and I've been on big stages before, world title fights, but this has probably got to rank as the biggest one I've been to. And I think the weigh-in Friday on its own is going to be it's going to be a massive turnout. You can just see.
It's almost like a starter for the fight, right?
Exactly.
In terms of the fans.
Exactly. I wouldn't be surprised if there's like 10,000 people there at the weigh-in on Friday. And John was fortunate to box on Canelo Jacobs undercard in Las Vegas a couple of years ago, and I remember then they'd done the weigh-in at the T-Mobile and had about 10,000 there. Yeah, so it's I believe this is even bigger than the fights he's done in Vegas. This fight here, because it's in front of his own town people.
How do you prepare for that as a team? We've got Greg just on my left, who I will be doing something with throughout the week as well. It is mentally going into the ring and having to deal with that. It's going to be like nothing else. This really is the Lion's Den. As a team, you can do all the work, but if it's not their fight night, if the occasion gets the better of someone, how do you sort of prepare for what you're going to experience come Saturday night?
I think with John, he's been in the game such a long time. You know, he's been a pro for like 14 years, and he's so experienced, and you know, he stays true to himself the whole time. And I mean that in the sense of he's an ultimate professional in everything he does. The way he trains, he eats, sleeps, does his S&C, everything that he does is around boxing. So mentally, you know, as you say, he's got his mind coach with him, and he's a mentally strong man. I mean, look at the decisions that he should have won but never went his way. But he never gave up, and he kept carrying on, and that's what's brought him to this day. And sometimes things happen for a reason, and you know, the reason is that he's here fighting Canelo Saturday in Guadalajara.
Tony, it's been a lot of up and downs in John's career, but something I mentioned with Conor talking about John is persistence, right? He's got 5 losses, regardless of, you know, dodgy decisions or whatever on the record. A loss is a loss, right? Is he proof in the modern day that the O isn't important? That if you stick at it, your opportunity comes around, if you're good enough, if you believe in your craft and the dedication, like you say?
Yeah, for sure. And you know, as you say, some of them losses were, quite a few of them losses was really debatable, and
that must almost be more demotivating at times.
yeah, but the way, when I say things happen for a reason, if he'd have got the decision over Callum Smith that night, which everybody thought that he'd won, I believe that Canelo was more in his prime then. Whereas I believe that, like, the year that Canelo's had, you know, we all know that, don't get me wrong, he's an all-time great, but he definitely isn't looking the fighter he was. Now, if you look at John's career, I think this last year John's probably had the best year of his life in victories. So sometimes by waiting your chance, time and place is a big factor sometimes.
You don't want to give the game plan away, but, you know, it's in Mexico, right? And I know Mauricio Suleiman, he made a point about, look, we're going to be fair, etc., but getting a decision here is going to be some feat, especially against Canelo. I spoke to John about that, and he said, look, I'm not stupid, I get that. At the same time, has faith, but you don't think about that at the time. But there is a big part of, you can't just come here and nick rounds, you have to come here and win rounds. Is it sort of, you've got to go in here and just get tight on Canelo's chest and just prove from the first bell to the last bell that true champion mentality?
Listen, we went to Liverpool twice, fought 2 Liverpool fighters, never got the decision that we should have done. And that was only 4 hours away from where we lived, so we were across the other side of the world. So I don't expect to get any favours, but at the same breath, you've got the whole world watching the fight, and public perception's a lot today. So, you know, if John wins but he doesn't get the decision, the public will speak, and I think today that means a lot. And you know, John's going to go out to win this fight, and if you don't get the decision down to judges that favour Canelo, there's not much we can do about that. But in everybody's eyes, they'll know who the victor is at the end of it.
Tony, sort of on the broader scale as a whole, the gym, I was with you in Cardiff, what an incredible night. I caught a little bit of you and Darren Barker after the scorecards. Crazy, that 116, 111. I don't really want to dwell on it, but, you know, whether you're a fan of Joe or not, that card was ridiculous, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was horrendous, and I had Joe winning by at least 3 rounds, and don't get me wrong, it was a great fight, but when you look at that scorecard, the judge only give Joe 3 rounds, and bearing in mind he had a 2-point round. So apart from the 2-point round, if that weren't a knockdown, he'd have only give it to Joe. But you know, he'd only give Joe 2 rounds out of the fight. So you know, it was horrendous. It's just ridiculous. And this is what I say: you can't perceive how a judge is how he's gonna do his decision. You can't perceive that, but in people's eyes, and everybody that watched Cordina versus Rakimov, in people's eyes, everyone thought Joe won by at least 2 to 3 rounds. So, and that's it, you know. And fortunately, the other 2 judges scored it correctly, and he got the decision.
Just out of curiosity, this is sort of taking me on a bit of a tangent. Before we go back to Joe, judging is something that's spoke about time and time again, right? And regardless whether it's in our country, England, and it's with the British board, or, you know, overseas with the different sanctioning bodies in America, Mexico, is there ever a way we can get stuff done? I mean, I look at, obviously we talk about the 2, you know, fights in Liverpool, what happened then, and, you know, you almost look back at like fights like Ritz and Vasquez, where everyone and their nan scores it one way, but the 3 judges score it another way. You've been in boxing for years now. Is there a way that, you know, what should be done, and is it realistic to see anything being done, or do we sort of work in a sport where sometimes change just isn't accepted, unfortunately?
Yeah, and what we've got to take into account from the judge's point of view is they're sitting on 3 sides of the ring, different sides, so they're obviously seeing different exchanges happening in the fights, and you know, some of them see a close round and just, you know, go with whatever fighter they think. But it's like football, like they brought in the VAR to clear up the bad decisions, but now everybody's yeah, exactly, Parsons, because everyone's moaning about the VAR. So I don't really know. It's always going to be controversial. I think boxing is always going to be controversial. And I'm just reading a book at the moment, I brought it with me, of a fighter called Joe Gans, who was the world lightweight champion in the early 1900s. And when I'm reading, he's getting bad decisions against him as well, like in the 20-round fights. So this
Back
ain't,
then,
yeah,
we got no hope.
that's what I'm saying. So this ain't a new thing. And, you know, this has been going on for a long, long time. And it does kind of ruin the sport a little bit by that happening. But I think today, because of social media, you've got more public perception of the public looking in and say, look, we think he won that fight. So, you know, he deserves a return, or he deserves another shot.
I'm young, right? And a lot of my friends sort of steer towards UFC now, which I understand. I suppose easier to score a 3-5 round fight. It's on a mad tangent, this. But I can sort of understand their reasoning from a casual perspective, and from a young fan trying to get into a sport. They watch fights and they'll message me and they'll be like, why is nothing being done about the scoring, etc. I know it's been going on a long time, but like I say, public perception, social media and stuff, it could potentially be a way that stop people getting into the sport.
Yeah, you're right. And like you say, like you know, if your friends are watching UFC, and because they think that's a more fairer decision sport, and you know, it is a shame really, but this ain't a new thing. This has always happened, and unfortunately it will go on happening, and I don't really see another way round it. I mean, if you look at the Olympics where they have the 5 judges, maybe that's a thing that in the professional game they might need to introduce, is having 5 judges instead of the 3, because with the 5, you know, it's a different score. Yeah, exactly. So maybe they need to look to introduce that.
All right. Just lastly from me, back on Joe. I know he was so devastated at the time that he was stripped for his title, and it felt so unfair because it was so fresh. In a weird way, I don't know why I haven't asked this to him myself yet, and I probably will later. But do you think now for him, he feels it's better being a 2-time world champion as opposed to, you know, everything he went through to come through it, and then he told me he always wanted a Gatti Ward, and then he had a fucking unreal fight. And not many people can say they're 2-weight world champion with that in the same weight. There's quite a cool air about it all.
Yeah, exactly, Parsons. And getting back to what I was saying earlier, everything's happened for a reason, and I believe that. I believe that God puts us on a path, and he puts us on a path for a reason. And you know, we're going back to Joe. He was meant to lose that belt, be stripped of that belt, and even though at the time, like you said, he was devastated about it, and he was meant to come back in probably the fight of the year and regain that belt, and now he's a two-time world champion. He's probably recognised in the super featherweight division as the #1 now. And you know, you got the other champions, i.e. the WBC champion Shaquille Foster, saying, listen, I want to fight Joe Cordina because he's the 2 times world champion. So he, you know, going off of that, he's probably more recognised now than he would have been.
Excited at the prospect of unifications for Joe?
Yeah, and Joe wants to fight the best in the world. He wants to put himself against the best in the world. He's fought 2 world champions and beat them already. So, you know, any one of them other world champions, I was talking to Eddie yesterday about it, that any one of them other world champions want to unify, we're willing to take the fight next.
What's your thoughts on the Barrett fight?
I've got no thoughts on it, really.
Are you interested in it? I know that if you're to do a voluntary, it probably will be Zelfa. It's a good British clash, etc. But I imagine from your point, a team point of view, you want unifications, really, don't you?
Yeah, we want unifications and, you know, big names, and you know, that's what you're in the sport to do. And like looking at John Ryder now, you know, John wants to fight the best in the world, and he is fighting the best in the world in Canelo, and Joe will have the same mindset as that he wants to fight the best in the world. And the best in the world at the moment are the other champions at his weight, and that's what he'll be aiming for. And I'm sure that Eddie Hearn can make one of them fights.
All right, Tony. Well, thank you very much for your time. Yeah, it's been fun causing chaos in Guadalajara. I'm sure even more chaos tomorrow when we go horse riding or whatever the fuck I've been roped into on that one. Final message ahead of Saturday night. John Ryder, a real opportunity to shock the world here in Guadalajara. Let's go.
Yeah, listen, John's in incredible condition. This is a long time coming for John Ryder, this fight. He's had his eyes on this fight for a good couple of years, and I believe the time is right now for John to showcase what he's all about and get in there, and I believe this is going to be a great fight. I don't believe Canelo will get the stoppage over John at all. I believe that it's going to be a good fight over 12 rounds. Like you say, whether we get the decision at the end of that, I don't know, but I believe it's going to be a fantastic fight.
Tony Sims, top man. Thank you very much for speaking to us at Boxing Social.